This is Chattanooga Civics. I'm Nathan Bird. The City of Chattanooga has access to a vast amount of data. Traffic reports, property tax records, 311 requests, permit applications, and more are all right at the city's fingertips. But it's only in the past few years the city has thought seriously about using this data to improve services, performance, and transparency. Today we learn more about the city's data and innovation program.
So I am Andrew Svigney, performance analyst here at the City of Chattanooga in the Office of Performance Management and Open Data. I've lived here in Chattanooga for, I guess, about 11 years. And now I am in this office for about 2.5 years. I love working in government and getting the city to be more data-driven.
And I'm Tim Moorland. I'm the Deputy Administrator for the Department of Innovation, Delivery, and Performance. Prior to that, I was the Director of the Office of Performance Management and Open Data. I'm what I like to call myself a recovering planner. I used to be a city planner and worked on transportation plans and land use plans and things like that. And doing more data work helped kind of kick off the office, the OpMod office. Didn't exist prior to. So I've got to see, I've had the privilege of seeing kind of that office start from the beginning to where it's at right now, which is just kind of fun.
Awesome. Yeah. So walk me through what does the office do and how did it start, just very generally?
Yeah. Okay. So the office started about 5.5, maybe 6 years ago under then Mayor Burke. And it does a lot of things, and I'm trying to think how to bucket all the things we do together. But I guess at a very high level, what the office is trying to do is trying to be more citizen focused and data driven in our delivery of services to Chattanoogans. It's really about taking all the data assets that we have in the city and actually making them so that we can derive value and improvements from them to make things better for Chattanoogans. And so there's a pretty large umbrella of what fits underneath that. So I'm going to miss some things and forget some stuff, and Andrew's going to jump in and correct me and tell me which ones to add. But we run the city's performance program. So that's thinking about what does performance and excellence look like in government? How do we track that and see how we're doing on that? So those are things where we set kind of performance measures and targets. So underneath that, we have a kind of a public facing performance dashboard. We do kind of regular performance check-ins and look at numbers with executive leadership, help build performance dashboards for departments, but also even teams. We do a lot of kind of co-design with local teams to design data-driven tools to help them improve their delivery of services. So there's a whole kind of data performance-y side of things. Then we have also a wing that works a little bit more on the, I guess, more advanced analytics, which is our Chatalytics program. That's where anyone can submit a project, city employee or otherwise, of a good project to use, kind of those buzzwordy type things, machine learning and other kind of other data science things, to actually be proactive with our data instead of kind of reactive and looking back, but proactively kind of using it in a predictive manner. So we run kind of that more advanced analytics component of it. And then there's also kind of a lot of scaling and upscaling. So upskilling and scaling of existing staff. The office itself is pretty small, 3 or 4 people. And we kind of realized that if we want to have a larger impact, we need to have not just us doing this work, but we need to make it so everyone can do this work. So we do things like coaching, we do trainings, we have a data academy that we'll sometimes run people through. We have a process improvement peak academy, which is trying to teach the best tools from the private sector to public folks especially frontline people, because they're the ones who are closest to the customer and also know the problems more intimately about what's going on. And also are going to be the people who are going to be tasked with fixing them if there is a problem. So like, why not just give them the tool set and empower them to actually make changes? So there's that kind of upskilling, empowering piece that we do as well. And then there's a whole kind of open data transparency as well. So that has to do with our open data site, has to do with our public facing dashboards and visualizations, has to do with our open budget app and open checkbook app and just other kinds of, ways to engage with the open data on top of just like, here's a spreadsheet, which most people is not going to be that interested in. So that was, this is the Office of Performance Management and Open Data. And then the IDP, the Innovation, Delivery, and Performance, is a new department. So with the Kelly administration. So we're kind of trying to figure out, what that looks like and what we're kind of our suite of projects are going to be moving forward. And that's still kind of a work in progress and trying to figure things out. Andrew, what I miss on kind of what we do at OpMod? That's our acronym that we use, because you got to have an acronym.
You got to have an acronym.
If you're in city government, got to have it.
You got to have it. Yeah, we no, I think you pretty much hit it in terms of our kind of our data science projects, our performance management, the open data. Open data is kind of how it all kicked off. This is kind of before my time that Tim kind of shepherded through, is really pushing open data hard, and then also saying, well, I can't just put data out there. You got to use it and get departments and people to use it, publicly, but also really importantly internally, to get them to kind of use their data. I think that's kind of, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. That peak, our peak process improvement class that we run, we've even had, I think, some council people go through. It's really great kind of getting the empowering employees to actually make change, and small incremental changes they can kind of focus on and have control over, because they are, like as Tim said, they're the ones who are going to be asked to make change anyway. So why not empower them to do it on their own?
We've actually helped a couple other cities, like Athens, Georgia, or Rock Hill, Georgia, kind of launched their own peak programs and had folks from the state and other places come and join us. So we're always interested in bringing other partners into it and kind of sharing it, and kind of helping other people be successful and launch similar programs out there.
Awesome. So how does this data get collected? Like, where are your data sources? Where is it coming from? So
that's the largest challenge, is just, I can give like kind of an early days perspective, but we do have a centralized IT, which is great. So that helps a little bit, but there's a whole myriad of programs that all the different departments are doing. You can think, code enforcement is going to use something different than public works, which will use something than the land development office, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's all these varied systems, and typically we didn't have an easy way to get data out of all of them. So that was the first order problem that we had to solve, is like, how do we know where all the data is? So that started with a data inventory about what systems and data we have, and then how the heck do we get it out? So some of our early challenges were working with IT and the departments to make them comfortable with us accessing the data. I think we're past that now, but in the early days, it was honestly just getting access to the data was the biggest challenge, because people didn't know who we were or what we were going to do with the data. And so we had to do a lot of trust and kind of building our own credibility so that IT trusted us, and also the departments. It's kind of interesting. You think something technical problem is going to, the technical piece is going to be the challenge. And what we found is it's the relational trust piece that was the challenge, and actually making sure we had access to all the data. Andrew, do you want to talk a little bit about how we have it set up now and what happens with our data and how things flow?
Yeah. So as Tim was saying, we collect it from the systems. So, we believe strongly in kind of data ownership, and it's the city's data that we own, that, when we have these services and, 311 and these other things, that it's like, we should be able to get it out of our system. So we put that in a lot of contracts now. But the way we do it is we essentially go creep into the back end of the data, whatever it is, it's data warehouse and API, which is another way to just kind of get access to it. And we have a a virtual machine that pulls this data out automatically every night. Some cases it can be every hour. It just kind of depends on what data we're looking at. We have a Waze workflow that we pull from some Waze data that we're scraping that's like every 30 minutes. But it's kind of, we try to do it in this automated fashion because that's much more manageable. Because I couldn't imagine just asking someone in a department, say, hey, could you just upload this every day, every morning when you wake up? So we try to save people's time, right? Because that gives also more time for departments and ourselves to do more analysis, to kind of do more of that. But there is, at the start, when we first go to a department, which there really aren't many that we don't like really have access to their data. I don't know, Tim, if you had to guess, would you say like, I feel like we've got like 85%, 90% coverage of kind of systems. Yeah, that sounds about right. But yeah, we get access and kind of work with them also on kind of what data they need, right? Because yeah, we try not to do just data for data's sake. We try not to say, all right, let's just take this whole data warehouse of all these things and just dump it into our kind of internal data portal, which also feeds our open data portal, because that would just kind of be a little bit of a waste. Say like, what do you actually need? What kind of data is important? And how can we structure this, sometimes unstructured data into something that's more useful for you? And that can be for you it could be a citizen that has an open data request, could be a department or a division we're working with. But that's generally how we kind of go about it. And then having it automated is great. And of course it breaks sometimes, but we're able to maintain it pretty well, that we can kind of keep the pipeline of data going out there. So I think the data, it's very interesting. It's kind of just in general, we call it garbage in, garbage out. Sometimes we'll go in and find that a division maybe has been not utilizing their system to its fullest, and they might be putting in, one thing we hate is free text. So when you see, like, when you're going to fill out a survey or something, and it's like, give me a paragraph answer of what this is, describing it, that is just very difficult to work with. I mean, it's still valuable, but we do some, again, and kind of like something else we do is kind of this data coaching sometimes with departments, saying like, hey, we recommend maybe you should turn these into drop downs, or put this on a map with coordinates. So
we actually really love it when the data is a little bit messy, because it means there's a great opportunity to kind of have these data conversations and actually get higher. Usually if the data's quality is not great, they're not getting really good value from using the data, because it's like Andrew said, garbage in, garbage out. So when we see that messy data, we're kind of excited, because like, oh, we can actually help here, and we can help clean this up. And it's an opportunity for folks to, actually get much higher value from the data when they actually clean it up and have, higher quality data feeding into their systems. And it makes sense too, because for most of these departments, the only way they interact with the data is through a screen where they're inputting it once or twice, and so they don't see kind of totality of what their data health looks like and how things are. And so that's something we can kind of help to do. It's very kind of nerdy, boring stuff, but it really matters. Like getting access to the data and getting high quality data out there is like foundational to all the data work we do. And if we didn't have these automated programs, and if we didn't have these data cleanups and all these other kinds of stuff, then we wouldn't be able to do, most of the data work that we are doing.
So it sounds like all these departments are kind of managing their own data, and then you're pulling it out of their system. Has there been any talk of maybe using y'all's database as kind of central repository, or is that kind of beyond your scope?
Yeah, so I think in some ways it kind of de facto is a central repository, but I think to Andrew's point, we really customize what we're pulling. So it's not everything. It's like it's the most impactful data that's most useful operationally and for what they need. So it's not a one-for-one replacement of like, their system goes down and that's the backup. So it's not that, but it is kind of the central source of truth. If you want to kind of look at the data, you go to the internal data sharing site, and then you can view it very easily through that platform.
And it's kind of also removing the barrier of entry for people that aren't super techie, or instead of having to give, maybe there's a bunch of employees or at the city who are interested in some data, but it's like, do we want to give them access to the entire back end of a system, or maybe it's just some data sets that they're interested in, that we could put through onto our internal data platform, which you can think of almost functions like our open data platform, but for internal city employees only.
So then how, getting into kind of how this data is actually used, how it actually applies to the city, I was hoping you could walk through, maybe 2 or 3 projects that have really benefited from using this data, and kind of walk through what that process was like.
Yeah, I have one example I really love, because we didn't do that much work on it. We helped some on some data work, but it was kind of a self-driven project. Have you heard of CFD Connect?
Possibly.
It is so it is the fire department is teaming up with UTC, and they're having actually social workers respond to addresses where they see a high amount of 554 calls, which are invalid assists. So that's usually somebody calling because they can't get into their wheelchair, or sometimes it's even they can't just put their socks on, and basic necessities that they might have, but the fire department responds. And so they actually use their data, and they noticed that there was just a steady increase in these calls over the years. And they're like, we need to do something, not just looking at the data, but say we need to do something to change this. Right. So they've partnered with UTC, and we've partnered with them to kind of connect the program's data with the fire's data to see like what their impact is as they continue to do this program, which I think started, I want to say maybe a year ago. That sounds about right. So that's been a really great, I think, use case of not just looking at the data and making a change off of it and kind of testing things, but also combining it with another source, which is kind of UTC's, their programmatic efforts. Tim, what's another one? What's another one you really like?
Yeah, I mean, we could stick with fire. I like that we kind of tried to do some predictive modeling for fires, especially commercial fires. So one problem they have is the fire inspectors have to inspect, new construction, daycares, and there's a whole host of things that they actually are mandatorily required to inspect. And once they get through all those inspections, they don't have a lot of extra time to inspect the hundreds of other commercial buildings that are out there. And so they have this limited bandwidth and a large number of inspections to do. So how do they prioritize properly? And so we create a kind of a decision support tool that helps kind of help them prioritize those projects. So it looks at predicting, fire risk associated with buildings. And then what they can use their own kind of professional knowledge about what they're looking at, and then also the fire risk score to prioritize where they're going to do their kind of those few kind of inspections that are not regulatory required, if that makes sense. And so we were very happy when the fire inspectors looked at it and said, yeah, there's definitely some buildings that are on our radar than some that are not. So it's like the model actually, there was some verification that from the subject matter experts, yeah, this seems to be working, but also they gave them some additional ones that weren't on their radar to kind of prioritize and look at. So now you have the different sub areas kind of using this model to think about where they want to do their fire inspection. So just helping folks work smarter, not harder, I think is great, because we have, like everyone else, they're got tons of work to do and not enough time to do it. So we're trying to shift towards more of these predictive type or proactive, I guess, uses of data, I'd say.
And then you all recently won an award for What Works Gold. Can you tell me more about that and that project that led to that award?
Yeah. Go ahead, Tim. No, go ahead.
So What Works Cities is kind of like the standard for what governance excellence look like in data-driven decision making, right? So they kind of set the standard, and it's a very rigorous requirement to meet the different data requirements they have for the different levels. We've been using it in the past to kind of think about where our data program should go and how we might want to improve it. So I would say there's not a project that gives us what Work City's gold certification, but what it is our overall kind of approach and use of data as a city. So it has to do with our open data program, it has to do with our data governance, it has to do with our performance program, it has to do with our upskilling staff, it has to do with kind of our chat analytics program. It's kind of a totality of like, are you doing data work in a meaningful way? And then kind of ranking you on that and seeing how you compare to peer cities and seeing how that goes. So that's something that we were awarded this year, just very gratifying to get. One of the few cities that kind of went first time from not being silver going straight to gold. So we kind of skipped silver, which we were very just super enthused about and felt very gratified. And one of the things that was most gratifying for me is, we had these people, they came in and did what they could call an onsite, but it's a virtual onsite because this was, during COVID, right? But they did a virtual onsite where we had 2 full days of just back-to-back meetings with city staff on how to use data and how they're thinking about their data work, where the evaluators were kind of interviewing all these people. And what was super gratifying for me was that, to a T, every single person was talking about their data work, but in a way that was very service driven and focused on how they provide the services to Chattanoogan. Can you guys hear me still?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, you're freezing a little bit, but I can still hear you. There you are.
Sorry. So the evaluators, at the end of the day said, hey, I just wanted to let you know that everyone we talked to, when they talked about what they were doing, it was always about serving Chattanoogans. The data was not the focus. The service to was the focus. And I think that's a really special kind of component of your data program, is that it's seen as a service to and not the sole focus of it. So we try to continually push that the reason why we're doing this is to better serve Chattanoogans. And that, as soon as our data program becomes, the focus is on meeting a number or just, getting the graph to look right, then we're kind of losing the point. The point is actually are we improving people's lives? And so we try to harp on that a lot with folks. And it was gratifying to hear that coming through, in the evaluation as well. What else do you want to say about the evaluation, Andrew?
No, I think I think you just hit the nail on the head, that it is, that is kind of the one comment that stuck with me too, on when they told us it was kind of just that more focus on service and citizens using data for that, not just, hey, you did some cool analysis, or you're really using data, that's great. It is more about, having an actual purpose behind it, not just data for data's sake.
That's awesome. And it sounds like, just from my conversations with, I've had 2 interviews now with the mayor's chief of policy, both about the 100-day plan that the mayor released in his campaign and also about the budget. And it sounds like the administration is really taking advantage of this office in terms of using kind of internal tracking for different goals. And also obviously getting the budget out. And, there's that tool now on the website that lets citizens just log in and walk through where each dollar is going and where each dollar is supposed to be coming from. What are some of these kind of internal measurements that y'all are excited about project wise?
Yeah, so I think I'm excited about doing a little bit closer linkage between the strategic plan and the performance framework that we have in place. So again, it's that linking that why to the data. So I think if we can kind of roll up all the data work to some of these strategic approaches that we'll be doing, I'm excited about that. So that's something we'll be thinking about and working on. I'm excited about, Mayor Kelly really saw the value in this work and doubled down and created an actual whole department around this data and innovation work. So I'm excited to see kind of where we can take this and how we can kind of take what we've done and really take it to the next level and really take our impact to it really affects Chattanoogans in a deeper way. And I'm not sure, I don't know what that's going to look like yet, honestly. So I think we're still trying to figure that out and see how this is all going to work. Another thing we're thinking, kind of, I'm not sure if this is going to answer your question, but these are kind of like, I was going like, what are the data horizons that we're kind of excited about and we're thinking about? Is that an appropriate way to answer your question, or
Sure.
you want me to be more focused on kind of directly the budget performance piece?
Whatever you want, Tim. Just the data, the future of data.
Future data. So I think we're really excited about linked data, right? And how can we do this in a responsible way? But we have a lot of data out there now. But like, what happens when we can actually overlay not just our police data, but maybe our, our rental assistance data or our code enforcement data or these other kinds of things. And we could maybe use it to identify when there are households in our community that are hurting and they need help. And maybe that's a way we can actually flag folks and reach out and say, what do you need? How can we help, right? Can we share data in a responsible way with partners so that they have a better sense for what's going on in people's lives? Talk a lot about, in the end, privacy is going to be a key component and concern here. So we haven't done any of this, but, with linked data and sharing with partners, potentially we could, let the school know when there's some, ACEs, some adverse childhood experiences happening for the people who for the children, right? So if you're a teacher, if you want to know, if there's a, maybe there's a medical condition and the caregiver is registered to the hospital or something else like that, that's an adverse childhood experience, or if the police are called, or all kinds of things. And so we have a lot of data that could maybe inform the school system and reaching out to kids. I don't know. We would have to figure out the privacy and all kinds of stuff like that. But when you start to layer this data, we can get a much richer picture of who's out there and also the effectiveness of the programs that we're providing as well. So I think we're excited about linking data in a responsible way and having that communication and that conversation with the Chattanooga public, kind of understand what their appetite and what they think about it is. And then also been thinking a lot about, are there, our data program, we don't want it to be a kind of solely focused on, did you meet your metric and did you meet the number? So it's kind of a strict accountability model. We're more of a learning model. So it's more about accountability for learning than accountability for meeting your metric, right? So if you're not looking at your data and you're not curious about it and you're not using it to understand what's happening and how and to better serve your, Chattanoogans, and we have a problem. Less so than if like you didn't meet this specific target. Does that make sense? So I think there's going to be kind of a doubling down on that and thinking about how do we build a data culture that is very focused on data as a compass, not as a grade, and how we can actually shift to a more learning organization, but do that in a way that we can do it with not just ourselves, but with our partners, and kind of help facilitate that all the way up the hierarchy down to like a nonprofit, all the way up to like a suite of nonprofits or other kind of overall efforts that are going on. So I think, I think those are all things that are on the horizon, and we're probably continuing thinking about how we can empower Chattanoogans and staff to do the same work. Because again, like me and Andrew, we don't scale well. Like, we have limited time. We're already maxed out with a lot of these projects, but like there's nothing to say that, any other city staff could not do some of the same work. And so we're very interested in like the data work, not just wholly living in the innovation, delivery, and performance, but how can we actually like get that out into all the other departments and all the other teams? What else do you want to say about, I don't know, future budget or where we're going, or kind of, it's probably too soon. There's probably a good thing to like end on, but that's kind of where my mind's at.
I would say, I think the only other thing I could think of, everything about linked data sharing. We've been trying to get a hold of the state on some things to do some data sharing. I'd say there's also this future of data that we've talked, Tim and I have talked some about these kind of, there are these very local problems sometimes in neighborhoods, and how can we get neighborhoods to feel more, and individuals to be more kind of empowered with their data and knowledgeable of kind of what's out there. And, it's not necessarily fixing problems but kind of using data in such a way to where there's increased knowledge around it on what could be happening. It could be maybe one neighborhood, just all they care about is code enforcement. And they're like, man, people's grass is so high around here. And they've got a couple houses that are shuttered and are falling apart. And it's like, how can we empower them with data to kind of better understand what's going on, or try to make changes? So there's, I think we don't really know what it is, but there's some sort of there of kind of more localized data engagement, not just kind of a broad, hey, here's all the, here's all the 311 requests for the city since 2014. There's like 1.8 million of them. It's like, here, go do something with it. Trying to be more engaged, I think, with our, with local neighborhoods and individuals on data, and kind of what they're interested in. So I think that'll probably be a future thing you'll see rolling out, probably 2022, is some more deep data engagement with targeted areas.
Yeah, that's actually a really good lead in. I was going to ask about just what kind of data sets that individual citizens can use. Personally, I've used it to look at the budget for the past couple of years. I've been using that, and then also there's a really great, the City Insider, the 311 and police reports map provides a really great picture of crime and code violations and that kind of thing, and is a really good resource for just individuals who are interested about what's happening in their city. Are there any other data sets that you think are, particularly worth mentioning in terms of what people might be interested in looking at?
There are so many. There's a system that our smart cities has, that they have cameras and the signalized intersections. I think they have about a third of the intersections now with signals have these cameras that record traffic volumes coming each way, as well as speed every 15 minutes. And we pull that data every night. We put it out there. Wow. It's a huge data set. When people, are interested in traffic, you go there, go look at I think we call it like vehicle volumes, CDOT vehicle volumes or something. There's, police data, arrests, citations. You've got fire incident data, 311, code enforcement, LDO, stuff on permitting. I think permitting I'm surprised we don't get hit up more by real estate agents and things asking about, because it's like, if you really want to know what's being built around Chattanooga, you should go look at our permitting data, because it'll tell you everything. If you're curious about, hey, I saw a sign down the street and all it gives me is a permit number, well, you can go on our data portal and actually go find, oh, here's what it says is going on. So there's just it's a lot of data too.
Yeah, it's almost too much.
I was going to say, this is dangerous for me. I'm going to sit down and just end up going down a rabbit hole.
There's almost too much. And so I think that's where Andrew's point about kind of almost like data curation or navigation, or some way of like helping folks think through what data is there and how they can use it is probably the next level that we're going to do with this work. I think there's also like, if you want to know where crashes are, there's some really great crash normalization data for all our intersections and links, and also just actual locations of crashes. And then some really good and useful transparency data on like the kind of how we do policing, right? So like what are the use of force and complaints and these other kinds of things that are really good for kind of accountability and transparency for the police department as well. So there's a ton of data, and I think most people don't realize that it's out there. And so we're realizing from our perspective,
Outdoor Chattanooga, who's signing up for not there. Obviously we don't do PII. We don't publish that publicly, but it's just,
what's a PII?
Personally identifiable information. So like names, birth dates, social security numbers, that stuff we don't put out there. Phone numbers, emails, but there is for Outdoor Chattanooga, they have a data set on like who's signing up for like basically not who exactly, but general information about, who's signing up archery, canoeing, kayaking, whatever. So it's like who maybe there's some person out there in the public that's like, I really want to know. And now it's out there. So it is, so you can get analysis by paralysis. And I think that's another future.
The other way. Not analysis,
Paralysis,
but
paralysis by analysis. Yeah. But one thing we've also talked about for the open data side is, and this is also actually kind of nationwide, what's happening to a lot of open data portals is like New York, San Francisco, they're getting so much data and they're getting so much better at like putting it out there that they're realizing, oh my God, I've got all this data out there. I need to like figure out better tools for citizens and constituents and whoever to ingest it. So they're creating much more useful like guides for citizens of like, hey, let's like actually put more context around data, which we call it metadata on the, so it's metadata, it's data on the data. And it kind of helps provide context and understanding of like what you could actually use this for, how this could actually be useful. So that's probably one thing we'll be really getting into here as a future project.
Something else too is if there is, and it can happen, that there's data you're looking for that the city owns, right? And it's not on there. There's a suggested data set page. So I think we just had one this week for CARTA and boardings, right? So where are people boarding the CARTA station? So that data exists, it's there. And so now we're starting to, begin those conversations, think about, how easy is it to get the data, what's the quality and things like that. But if you're not seeing the data and it's something that the city owns, and if it doesn't have, legal restrictions or PII, then typically we'll try to get it out there.
And then is there any way to kind of request like an overlay of two different data sets? So if I wanted, you were talking about traffic volumes, is there any way to overlay traffic volumes with accident reports?
There is.
And see like,
so
what's the correlation?
Yeah. So a couple things, like you can download all the data and do your own kind of stuff on, just, if you kind of know those tools, you can actually sign up on the Open Data Portal and sign in. And there's a whole suite of visualizations that you can build by yourself. You can build your own maps, your own charts and things like that. And so on the maps, you could actually overlay, if you wanted to, like you said, traffic volumes and crashes. And so you can just kind of layer the data in that way. It's a little bit of a learning curve. There are some videos. We probably need to update our videos so that it's a little bit easier to understand how to use it. And we've been thinking about like, we have interns, our summer interns, their whole project was on how can we better engage folks with, the open data platform. So, we have several kind of in our back pocket of like potential ways of re-engaging folks with the data. I'm not sure if it's a citizen data academy or, what, but there's probably many different ways that you can help people, gain value from it. And I think it's going to be more, I don't know, like Andrew said, I think it's going to be more problem solution based, right? So, you have a problem, how can we help you understand it more deeply? And then also help you understand like if things are improving or changing with it as well, and kind of see if we can help walk communities through how to use the data in that way.
And that, just one or two more questions here, but you mentioned the Chatalytics program. Could you talk more about that? What that is and how people sign up? And
yeah, Andrew, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. Chatalytics is, I think as Tim has mentioned, it's kind of our next step in our kind of data journey. We went from, just kind of getting data, starting to do some descriptive analytics and diagnostic analytics, which are still kind of like looking back. And Chatalytics, we're trying to say, all right, what's our like next step with data? Looking at predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics, which is all kind of about like, how do you not only, know what happens, but then try to say, okay, well, here's what's going to happen. And then, or how can we make it happen? So Tim mentioned the fire risk score. Was a Chatalytics project that we worked on. We've done a couple others. We're actually in our round 2 of Chatalytics projects right now. One of them is around paving prioritization, which I think is always a hot topic in the city. So that's a really fun one. And then we do have on our website, we have gotten a few people who have been interested, some data sciencey people around the city, to volunteer, who are interested in also helping work on these, because I think it's important also to have community involvement in these projects. We are, the gig city, so I feel like we've got some data science people around here that are that want to get involved and use their data science for good. So they're, we accept volunteers. We're still trying to figure out, I think, exactly the best way to integrate them into projects. But it is a program that people can sign up for. But also, if they're interested in some deeper data science projects and they see data on the city's portal, we're also always interested in kind of that kind of community-driven effort as well. So I think that's when we get really impressed and we think that things are really cool, is when we have the just community. Whenever I see anything that's linked to our open data portal and they've been using our data, and it's like they built something out really amazing, just like, this is awesome. That's when I get really excited, is when that occurs, which doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's a really good feeling.
One other way to engage is, so part of this program is we source potential projects and kind of vet them. And so, potentially, I think right now we're mostly sourcing from departments. There might be a way to get that from the community. But what it means for data science folks, or maybe even people who are in university or otherwise looking for a good project to work on, we have like a whole kind of list of like, here's some data sciencey projects where we've already done the vetting, know who to contact, have the data, et cetera kind of thing. So that's another opportunity for community members who want to engage with us. We kind of have this source list of potential really impactful data projects that, we can only do 1 or 2 a year, but if there's other folks who want to come on and work with us, we can do more of that kind of work.
Cool. Well, that answers all my questions. Is there anything else that y'all want to mention before we close out?
Couple things. One's we're hiring. So we want to, if you want to join a data-driven team, very mission-driven, and want to make a difference in Chattanooga, then we are looking for senior data analysts. So these folks are going to be getting to see kind of the breadth of city government and kind of understand, and also being able to dive deep into some departmental problems as well. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. If you're a very curious individual, if you like solving problems, if you like using data, if you like working with people, these are all really, it's going to be a lot of really interesting, fun projects going on. So I think we'll have several upcoming hirings for that job, which is very exciting. We're excited about getting those folks set up and ready to go. Andrew, anything else you want to say about those positions coming up?
No, I think we're just really excited for the increased bandwidth. So, I don't think they're doing the first reading of the budget. I think that's next week. It's the first reading, and then hopefully it passes so we can hire these people. That would be ideal, but I think it'll pass.
Yeah, but the job, just you can apply for those now. So
yes, you can apply.
Those are on city website. So definitely check that out. And I'm trying to think what else is I think just if you're a community member interested in using data or thinking about how data can help solve problems, or you can use data in an empowering way to help your community better communicate your needs. That's something we're very bought into and interested in. So you can also reach out to us at opendata@chattanooga.gov, and that's a good way to that hits up a lot of the team members. And so if it doesn't get to me, Andrew will apply, or someone else. So
it's just us, Tim, just the two of us.
I know. Let's try to make it sound bigger.
Somebody. So there's somebody else. They'll get you. They'll apply.
Yeah. I don't know. So I think that's it. And then just we're really excited about kind of what's next for the city's data program. Like I said, we have a really supportive mayor and leadership that's bought into this and excited about this and investing in this. And so I think our work's going to continue to be put out there and be hopefully impactful for Chattanoogan. So kind of trying to think what else we need to let people know about. Andrew?
I think that's it, Tim. I think we got it. I can't wait for the flurry of emails.
It's already, they're coming, right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Well, this sounds great. Thank you guys for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Chattanooga Civics. Our music was written and recorded by Kevin MacLeod. If you have any questions or feedback, please send me an email at chattanoogacivics@gmail.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ChatCivics, or visit the website chattanoogacivics.com. Thanks for listening.